Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce, ATP Atypical Philosopher. That's what it stands for. I'm telling you that because I'm wearing one of my original Atypical Philosopher t-shirts. Ooh, get the stash out. Okay, we're going to start with the Ukrainian General Staff figures as per normal for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply, of course. 1,050 personnel lost, that's over the 1,000 threshold. 4 tanks and 0 AFVs, so particularly low in that last category there, signifying certainly something. 39 artillery systems, that is over the daily average again, like moving right back up because we have had a day or so of much lower numbers there. 1 multiple launch rocket system, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, so fairly good there, and 91 vehicles and fuel tanks lost for the Russians. We move on. I don't have any Andrew Perpetual loss lists, I don't think. Let's have a look on his socials. See if there is one there. I wouldn't want to miss it. No, doesn't look like he has added one. 27th, 29th. I don't think. Oh, this 17 hours ago. Okay, no, this is a new one. Right, sorry, my apologies. He has got a new one. I missed it. We have far more Ukrainian losses than Russian losses, but if you take out the surveillance and comms equipment, we've already talked about that previously, then actually it looks much closer to being to having parity. And actually it is a case of, well, I think Ukraine is just losing slightly more civilian vehicles, and the Russians will go to the Ukrainian losses first and see what they have to show us. So, a lot of Starlinks and comms equipment. It's not too serious. Engineering vehicle, a crane truck, a couple of UGVs. Then we have, how come, that's interesting. That Koksan there is on the wrong list. So Koksan is a North Korean self-propelled piece of artillery, and the Excalibur is a precision-guided artillery munition that the Ukrainians use. Comes from the Russians. We also have a Lancet here. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Excalibur. No, that's right. So, sorry, I was getting myself confused. So, that one, I think that top artillery one should be on the Russian list. But otherwise, it's fairly normal. Yeah, I was just getting confused because you've got some Grodzikas and Akatsiya there, and they are generally seen on the Russian list. The Ukrainians do have them. So I don't know if there's a larger mistake with some of this artillery. As yesterday there was a plane that was on the wrong list. So maybe a pinch of salt with some of those, unless they've been captured, of course, and used, although the Ukrainians do use the old Soviet equipment as well. But as far as the rest of the equipment is concerned, your usual Humvees and mobility vehicles, Max Pros, Kirpis, that sort of thing. Nothing too much to worry about, and some civilian vehicles as per usual. So not too worried about the Ukrainian list, to be perfectly frank. The Russian list may have a Koksan included on it. And then we have an engineering vehicle, some artillery on there, MTLB with an S60. So that's one of these Frankenstein bits of kit, I guess. The track guard and shed, quite a few tanks there, half a dozen tanks, including a track guard and shed T80, T72, and some unknown trucks as well. Then we have, unknown tanks. Then we have IFV, single one there, a few trucks, and then ATVs, motorcycles, four-wheelers, and a bunch of civilian kits. So nothing too bad for the Russians either. A fairly quiet day, all things considered. We do have news that the Ukrainians may well have lost a Black Hawk helicopter. These are helicopters that they only have a few of. The special forces operate them. Russians apparently destroyed the Ukrainian GUR, so the Ukrainian intelligence, UH-60 Black Hawk, while it was parked at the Prilyuki airbase in Chernihiv. Just seeing if there's any other information on this. Someone else saying it's a Mi-8, not a Black Hawk. 5 blades. Look at the intake as well above the cockpit. So it might not, it's not Black Hawk. So actually some people disagreeing with that. I love a good bit of open source chitter chatter. So it looks like a Mi-8 was lost. So that's good. Not a Black Hawk. It's definitely got 5 rotors, given that those 3 are in those positions. And though you can't see the other 2, maths will tell you they'll be there and there. So that is slightly better than the Black Hawk because they don't have too many Black Hawks, and it means they've hit not necessarily the special forces. It's just parked up. I doubt there'd be anyone at the helicopter, but yeah. So that may well have been lost. Then we move on to this was reported, I think, yesterday in the loss list. This is a TOS 1A Solntsepyok. It's basically your thermobaric launcher that the Russians have a fair few of, but they have lost quite a few of these. I'd like to know the list of how many they have now, the numbers there, because these are quite vulnerable. They don't have too much of a range, I think 6 kilometers or something. So they end up being fairly close to the front lines and therefore being quite vulnerable, although they are pretty horrific, the munitions, when they do hit. Anyway, that's been taken out there. Then you see this. So as Trent Telenko says, the bottom of the Russian AFV refurbishment barrel has been reached. And new, so this is Armored Warfare saying, new Russian AFVs have just dropped two, in fact, a PT-76 chassis and a BTR-50 chassis. So those are really old bits of kit. Let's look at the PT-76. I mean, the BTR-50 is going to be from the 50s. PT-76, 1951. There you go. That is an old tank. My goodness. Produced from 1951 to 69. Someone says the chassis possibly still produced. So that could be why you're seeing it there. But nonetheless, taking really old bits of kit and then putting some turrets on them. A couple of BPPU-1 turrets. These are 30mm turrets from the BTR-82A. So what they're doing is basically smashing bits of kit together, which shows you that they don't have the original kit, right, in either form. And they don't have new kit, that's for sure, or not enough new kit. So they're scraping the barrel as far as refurbishments are going. That's a claim there. I showed you this on my frontline update yesterday. This happened near Verkhnokamianska on the way to Sversk, somewhere around there. The Ukrainian tank saw one of those turtle tanks, and basically, in a rare scene, you've got a tank-on-tank battle here. I say tank on tank, I'm not really sure what this turtle tank is and whether it was indeed a tank or whether it's an MTLB, some kind of APC, but assuming that is a tank, turtle tank, you've got the Ukrainian tank over here just going straight in front of it. If it is a tank, it will likely not have an operational turret. It's just being used as a glorified APC, and then it gets hammered, and that's broadly the end of that vehicle. But I think it is still moving backwards slowly, so I don't know if it got a second hit, or what happened to that. Right, not for the first time, we see motorcycles having a bit of an issue here. This, why am I showing this? I mean, it's just wow. But also, it shows you how many motorcycles are traveling around these tracks and these roads. That is a preferred vehicle of choice for the Russians. It's good to see two of them probably not in a good way anymore. That's the easiest way of the Russians being degraded and attriting themselves by crashing into each other. Right, there is some footage now out. I think this is from September, it says here, September 2024. Archive footage reveals the first ever use of FPV drones at sea by Ukraine's HUR Special Forces during a raid off Crimea's coast on September the 11th. Last year, the Raven Group, part of HUR's Timur unit, launched drones from boats to strike Russian forces on the Petro-Hodovanets gas platform. So what we are seeing now more likely are Migura V5s or similar platforms, similar USVs, unmanned surface vehicles, having drones take off from there and use those platforms as repeaters for their signal. But what we've got here are boats having drone operators on board and then getting close enough to strike at these gas platforms with the drones and take out whatever target they can. And that's from last year. Then this is broadly drawn from reporting from Ukraine's video. This is the analyst saying that in Liman direction, Russian attacks are devastated using Roman tech from 2,000 years ago. 63rd Brigade of the Ukrainian army has been defending against Russian efforts to push towards Liman on an area filled with natural defense positions from the Oskil River to the dense forests and hills. The claimed killed ratio in the video is 1 to 66. That's absolutely staggering. So the Russians are losing 66 for every Ukrainian loss there. And that's partly because they're getting hammered before they reach the Ukrainian lines, right? So there isn't. It's not that the Ukrainian soldiers are amazing at shooting the Russians and they're just invincible, don't get killed. It's that the Russians are getting absolutely shellacked way before they reach the Ukrainian lines. Here is a staggering 1-66 against the Russians, believed to be the highest of the war so far. Part of the success has been the deployment of Russian army style caltrops, which looks like Roman army style, caltrops, which looks like a three-pointed anchor with a spike on the top and a sharp hooks angled out of the arms. The ones in the photo most closely resemble the ones I saw yesterday. So there you see them with hooks at the end. Distributed by drones and laid across Russian supply roads and lines of attack in fields, they cause tyres to shred and force Russians to stop and clear them up when they're attacked by FPVs or artillery. The Russians keep throwing motorbike-mounted infantry against deep defences and seem to have no answer or alternative for the repeatedly... oh, thank you very much. I have. Thank you, my sweet. Bit of breakfast and a cup of tea. You can't ask for more than that. That is absolutely fabulous. Anyway, that's put me off my my flow. So it says deep defensive. They have no answer or alternative for the repeatedly bankrupt tactics in this sector. By constantly laying new caltrop traps deep behind the lines, the Russians never know where's next. The Romans use them to get into horses' hooves and slow cavalry charges. You can go and see details of that on the Reporting from Ukraine video. But that is a success for the Ukrainians in that particular area. And I reported yesterday that RT Green was talking about in that particular area, so Borova down to sort of where we're talking here, that the Russians are taking insanely heavy losses. And that kind of confirms, it's always good when you get several data points that verify each other. They certainly don't disconfirm. And that leads us to have greater confidence in the claim. Okay, so Kyiv Independent here reports that Russian airstrike on a Ukrainian prison has killed 17 inmates. This took place yesterday. A Russian airstrike against a prison in southern Zaporizhia killed 17 convicts and injured 42 more, according to the State Criminal Executive Service. This is a war crime. It is horrific, and there is a lot of talk about that this morning. Anton Gerashenko says Russian forces struck a correctional facility in Zaporizhia region with 4 guided aerial bombs, killing 17, injuring 82 now. The facility's headquarters and quarantine units sustained significant damage, while the cafeteria was completely destroyed. As a result of Russian missile strike on Kamyanska in Dnipropetrovsk region last night, 2 people were killed and 5. So this is other strikes here. 2 people were killed and 5 others injured, according to regional military administration. And yeah, other deaths, unfortunately, up in Dnipropetrovsk. Firefighters were extinguishing fire there while the firefighters were doing their work. The Russians did a double tap strike on them to target the rescuers. A fire and rescue vehicle was damaged. Fortunately, no of the personnel were injured, though, so that's good news. Okay, so now, yeah, we also hear that there's a new tactic that Ukraine is has thwarted a Russian plot to kill a prominent army unit commander. The Ukrainians have done a job on some of the Russians, I think, with assassinations and assassination attempts. Now we have the Russians trying it on the Ukrainians. The plot was orchestrated by Russia's FSB, which used false flag tactics and a psychological manipulation to recruit a Ukrainian national, according to the SPU, the SBU. Now let's move on to distance strikes, and here we have 37 drones flying into Ukrainian airspace, so that's a lot fewer than the night before, 32 of which were destroyed. That gives an 86% interception rate. 5 drones and 2 missiles that were recorded hit 3 locations. Fragments fell in 2 other places. So a much quieter night, all things considered. No particular news of any large-scale strikes other than... No, this is from yesterday. So as a result of 2 nights ago, the strikes then, which were almost entirely on Starokonstantinov, there is actually some footage coming out of Starokonstantinov. Have a look at this, and you can see explosions taking place at this airbase. This is unusual because OPSEC, I think, is quite tight around Starokonstantinov. It is a really important airbase for the Ukrainians, and so I'm quite surprised to see imagery coming out showing explosions there. Damn good cup of tea in my NAFO mug as well. I mean, she knows how to please me, so to speak. Too much information. Hensoldt's TRML-4D. So this is the radar that they are actually going to receive a bunch more of that is associated with the IRIS-T, is in fact capable of ballistic missile search and track. But the IRIS-T SLM, that's medium range IRIS-T launchers, lacks the altitude range to have much of a defended footprint against ballistic threats. So what's he referring to? Well, it turns out the ambassador, the German ambassador the Ukrainian ambassador to Germany has mentioned that the IRIS-T has shot down ballistic missiles. We'd heard hints about this before. This is not the first time we heard a claim, but it is really good. Colby Babwad says, I would imagine these were a few lucky interceptions. Well, they may be lucky, but you might as well try, because if you don't have Patriots everywhere around, then last chance saloon with some IRIS-Ts, that you do have quite a few of these, and Germany is getting a bunch more. I think there are 11 more on the way. If they do have some ability to shoot down ballistic missiles, then that's, last chance saloon. That's better than nothing, right? So German aid to Ukraine says, in an interview with European Pravda, Ukrainian ambassador to Germany, Oksay Makiev, has confirmed today that Ukrainian air defense forces have succeeded in intercepting ballistic missiles with the IRIS-T SLM in a few cases. Even though Diehl Defense as a manufacturer already stated that the IRIS-T SLM is capable of intercepting short-range ballistic missiles, I do not recall that a successful Ukrainian engagement was previously confirmed, although we had heard some rumours in an interview, nor have I seen any images of fire units on which such an intercept was marked. But given all that, that's good news if it is true. Okay, now we move on to one strike that we do know about from the last 24 hours, and that's an attack on Dnipropetrovsk, where another maternity department, war crime, and a children's clinic, war crime, have been hit. Kamyansk Mayor Andriy Bulusov confirmed the 9th hospital suffered significant damage to all roofs and windows. Patients have been moved to other medical facilities, and there have been casualties there, sadly enough. We hear that it killed 3 people. They're unsure whether they are patients or workers there at the maternity home in Kamyansk and Dnipropetrovsk. Russian ballistic missile attack killed 3 there. That is a war crime. It is horrific. That's what the Russians do. Okay, moving on, we have Ukraine and their activity last night. There's a lot of talk about one particular place, but more targets will have been in the crosshairs of the Ukrainians. As ever, we don't have huge amounts of information about what was struck, if anything, other than the area at Salsk that we're going to talk about. So, Visioner says at this moment, which was last night, 10 o'clock local time, 10 p.m. local time, at this moment, the Ukrainian drone attack has begun targeting the Rostov and Krasnodar Oblasts regions in Russia. Air raid sirens have been activated in some cities, and the sounds of explosions are being heard. Here, no report says, according to Russian monitoring channels, the attacks on occupied Donetsk and Makivka are part of a broader attack. Incoming reports of drone activity in Kamyansk, Rostov, and the whole of occupied Luhansk region. Lots of drones are reportedly flying. There are lots of power outages reported. So stuff is happening, but we are not hearing routinely about the success of Ukrainian strikes, which makes you think, wonder whether they are as successful as you might hope. There is some success that we know about from last night, and that concerns Russian railway logistics. We'll get onto that in a second. We'll start here. A massive drone attack is reportedly underway on occupied Donetsk. Early reports suggesting the railway station may have been among the targets. Ukrainian forces have increasingly focused on disrupting Russian railway logistics, and tonight appears to be no exception. Actually, that appears to very much be what was going on. A huge explosion being seen at the Russian train station at Salsk in the Rostov region. So this is in Russia, not in occupied territory. And that does look like a decent explosion doing some proper damage there. And that's largely because I think you've got railway cars full of fuel there. So tonight, Russian train station at Salsk, Rostov region was targeted. Judging by the footage, fuel trains located at the station began to burn. This 380 kilometers from the front line. That is again part of a pattern of striking at these railway logistics hubs. And a lot of imagery coming out from there. Big fire at Salsk, Rostov region. Drone strike set an oil depot and railway station ablaze. Tankers, tracks, and buildings are burning. The target was a key logistics hub supplying fuel and weapons to the front and Crimea. At least 9 trains have been delayed as a result of those strikes. And here we can see, loads of videos of this burning. The Dvoynaya traction substation in Orlovsky, Rostov region has been struck. They've also struck that. Actually, that's not the train station. Sorry, this is a different strike. But it does disable the key element of Russia's critical railway infrastructure. So these substations feed the electric railway network. It means that, I guess, if you take that out, you're going to have to rely on diesel trains. So that is significant. And as Tim White says, he talks about the railway being hit, the infrastructure being hit there, and the proximity to occupied parts of Ukraine and a route to Crimea run through here. That makes it an important target. There are plenty of photos being posted of damage done to buildings and infrastructure there. Even 60 kilometers north of Salsk, still in Rostov, fires broke out near the village of Orlovsky. From the video, it looks like it could be downed debris from drones, but not on the railway lines there. Then we see that substation that was hit, and then we have lots of footage of the railway tracks and new videos there showing that a train carrying fuel and lubricants may have had a visit from the Ukrainian drones there. You can see that is on fire. In fact, it's still on fire this morning. Head of Salsk in Rostov region has been forced to deny they are evacuating the town. He has also had to acknowledge that 2 tankers and a locomotive have been hit by Ukrainian drones. And earlier, the governor said 1 person had been killed in a parked car. As to reports that when the attack happened, a passenger train was at the station. Windows were damaged, but no passengers were injured, and the journey resumed later. Russian authorities say 9 trains in the Rostov region are currently suffering long delays following the attack. They promise meals for any long-distance ticket holders delayed more than 4 hours. And then he goes on to talk about other bits and pieces. So, yeah, it is a significant strike potentially there. 74 drones were allegedly shot down, according to the Russians. 43 in Bryansk. So that's actually north of the border, which is not kind of the indication we had from this initial image, which showed all of the strikes going for territory to the east of Ukraine. 43 in Bryansk and 22 over Rostov, and that's part of what the 22 drones supposedly did. So over 3 days, says Tataragami, Ukrainian long-range drone strikes have dealt a tangible logistical blow to a rail line linking the military and industrial hubs of Volgograd and Rostov-on-Don. Preliminary analysis points to the destruction of traction substations and fuel tanks. So this is what happened previously. This is not from last night. That's a strike, I think, from the other day, I have a feeling. The strikes have repeatedly targeted infrastructure along the railway line, which serves both industry and the supply of Russian forces, including those in Donetsk and Luhansk. The pattern points to a deliberate and systematic effort to disrupt the route. So there you see some of the targeted areas. This is in Volgograd. You have Rostov-on-Don here, and then you've got Ukraine over there. This is the Sea of Azov up here. So they really are looking at taking out that railway logistical network. Video uploaded by residents of Orlovsky shows the local traction substation Dvoynaya, so that's last night, which powers the railway movement, engulfed in flames. We've geolocated the site and assess it's likely to remain temporarily out of service. And they've geolocated that to, there on the map, if you care. Another drone strike hit a train with fuel tanks in Salsk, a railway hub in Russia's Rostov Oblast. The strikes triggered intense flames and thick black smoke, likely disrupting rail traffic in the area for an extended period. And we know it's going to be an extended period because actually it is still burning this morning. Russian fuel train still on fire after tonight's drone attack on Salsk. That's in the Rostov region. I don't think it looks like it's going to continue burning down the train, unfortunately. So there are quite a few other carriages that have got away with it. And then on July the 27th, Ukrainian drone strikes destroyed another traction substation in Zhytovo in Volgograd Oblast, causing major disruptions, delays and rerouting. And that's what I showed you the other night, or probably yesterday morning, actually. More details in my other thread, he says. That's 2 days ago. The substation wasn't the only target that day. A nearby building at the railway station was also completely destroyed. Based on our analysis of the location, the exterior and visible equipment, the structure was likely a signal control station. So that was completely destroyed, that building, really. We previously noted that this railway line is important due to its links to major industrial military sites and installations, including airfields. At the same time, it's neither the largest nor the only line in the area, suggesting deeper intent behind the strikes. Overall, our team notes a systematic approach with deliberate target selection. The strike on a fuel-carrying train suggests Ukraine had detailed intelligence to time the attack precisely. We'll keep updating this thread as more information emerges. That's an important point, to hit that at exactly where there is a fuel train. That is super, super important. That's what did the Kerch Bridge. Now, I think that might have been luck more than anything, but you don't know for sure, where that truck exploded on the Kerch Bridge on the road part of it, and it also caused the railway. Well, the railway part of the bridge had a fuel train on it at the same time, and that was what caused, that those fuel cards going up in flames caused a significant amount of the damage. But I don't know whether that was intended or luck, but certainly I would assume something like this. There was intention to hit it when the fuel cards were there, and that means that they probably had intelligence. Okay. A major fire has broken out at the headquarters of a military unit in Nizhny Novgorod in Russia. This was yesterday, so I don't have any details of that. That was yesterday. Other than what you see there. So headquarters of a military unit is on fire, quite away from Ukraine. And here, powerful explosions are being heard and fires are being reported in Russia's Rostov region. So going back to where we just kind of were with the railway logistics, as Volgograd and Rostov oblasts next to each other. This is at the Borodinivsky training ground. Military Unit 45767, home to the 11th Separate Engineering Brigade. According to preliminary information, a large depot of Russian ammunition was destroyed as a result of a Ukrainian drone strike. So that was yesterday in the daytime. Really significant fire going off there. And this DEFMON refers to the same video here, saying the forest near Borodinivsky training grounds is on fire. Hopefully the S-400 battery in or around that forest goes up in flames too. So it could well be that an S-400 battery was targeted with that. Obviously, it's an absolute shame about the ecological impact of this war. It's heartbreaking. We also hear of an unidentified drone crashing in Minsk. Minsk is the capital of Belarus, after being downed by Belarusian forces. Belarusian independent media outlet Zakalo cites local residents reporting that the drone crashed into an apartment building and struck a parked car and exploded. So who knows what's going on there. A drone from one of the two sides has gone awry and ended up in Minsk. Right, Moscow halts gasoline exports as we move on to other bits and pieces. From the 29th of July, they've done this before. It shows that they are in trouble with production, or you also have, you got issues of production and refining, given their own facilities coming under pressure, being attacked. We haven't seen too many facilities attacked recently, unless that is happening and we're just not hearing about them, not seeing the video footage of this. And that affects their ability to produce hydrocarbons, which then has an effect on the price domestically. And of course, then you have OPEC Plus having their supply constraints or quotas, and that can also have an effect. So all sorts of things possibly causing the fuel to hit record highs. Even fuel producers are now blocked as domestic prices hit record highs, says Euromonitor Press. A decision to halt gasoline exports again follows historic price spikes at the St. Petersburg exchange and a market struggling to meet summer demand. we're going to spend a little bit of time on the cyber attacks on Aeroflot yesterday, causing some $50 million of damages. Hackers left a provocative ASCII message, as you can see here. Aeroflot kaput. This was huge, actually. So Aeroflot's internal IT infrastructure was destroyed by Belarusian hackers, is the claim here. They spent a year inside Aeroflot's corporate network, methodically developing access, delving into the very core of the infrastructure. Get and download the full array of flight history databases, compromise all critical corporate systems, including Crew, Sabre, SharePoint, Exchange, Kasud, Sirax, CRM, ERP, 1C, DLP, and others. Gain control, these are obviously their objectives or what they achieved. Gain control over personal computers and employees, including senior management. Copy data from wiretapping servers, including audio recordings of telephone conversations and intercepted communications. Extract data from personnel monitoring and control systems. We got access to 122 hypervisors, 43 ZVIRT virtualization installations, and about 100 ILO interfaces for server management, 4 Proxmox clusters. I mean, don't know what any of this means. As a result of the actions, about 7,000 servers were destroyed, physical and virtual. The volume of information received is 12 terabytes of databases, 8 terabytes of files from Windows Share, and 2 terabytes of corporate mail. Wow. We also hear that, do I have it? No, there are claims that they were using Windows XP and that senior managers hadn't changed their, I'm sure I've got it somewhere. Yeah, senior managers hadn't changed their passwords for 3 years. Like lots of really poor infrastructure and processes there that allowed these hackers to really go to town on Aeroflot. Windows XP, goodness. Now we're hearing that Aeroflot can't even refuel the plane, complains a source at Aeroflot. They can't even refuel the plane, complains a source at Aeroflot. According to him, only those flights whose flight plans were prepared in advance are taken off, and the pilot's internal communications have been transferred to Telegram. Hackers who hacked Aeroflot revealed that the company, here it is, company uses outdated Windows XP, and the CEO has not changed the password for 3 years. Sorry, that's a claim. I knew I had it somewhere. It's really hammered the Russians here. Hackers who hacked Aeroflot revealed that the company, uses Windows XP. The password hasn't been changed for 3 years, and just absolute chaos in the aviation industry. But it's pretty serious because Aeroflot is part of the illiquid assets, so the non-cash assets of the National Welfare Fund. So this is part of the wealth of Russia, right? This is the value of its shares at the end of June 2025. If it gets destroyed, structurally, and if it loses massive amounts of value, then that affects the sovereign wealth fund. So according to Russian media, it will take at least 6 months for Aeroflot to fully restore operations to the level they were before the attack. Cyber attackers reportedly caused the airline over $50 million in damages. Belarusian and Ukrainian hackers not only destroyed 7,000 of the airline servers, but also gained access to 20 terabytes of data. They hacked company's website, online booking systems, internal services, employees and executive computers and phones, and accessed their calls and emails. They also deleted Aeroflot's passenger flight history and flight schedules. Absolute success for those hackers there. Right, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has said that Putin miscalculated badly when he spoke to Trump about peace in Ukraine, only to then strike civilian cities. So we heard Trump yesterday talk about, they said they want peace and then they go and strike these cities like Kiev, as Trump would put it. But Trump is evidently annoyed at Putin. And here Graham says, I fully understand President Trump's frustration with Russia's continued attacks, which show Putin has no real interest in peace talks. And in response to this, Dmitry Medvedev has started an online battle with Lindsey Graham. As Kate from Kharkiv says, Medvedev versus Graham wasn't on my bingo card. So what happened? Originally, Dmitry Medvedev said stuff like this. Trump's playing the ultimatum game with Russia, 50 days or 10. So this is moving from 50 days down to 10 or 12. He should remember 2 things. Russia isn't Israel or even Iran. 2, each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. don't go down the sleepy Joe Biden route, blah, blah, blah. Lindsey Graham then said, to those in Russia who believe that President Trump is not serious about ending the bloodbath between Russia and Ukraine, you and your customers will soon be sadly mistaken. You will also soon see that Joe Biden is no longer president. Get to the peace table. To which Dmitry Medvedev then says, it's not for you or Trump to dictate when to get to the peace table. Negotiations will end when all the objectives of our military operation have been achieved. Work on America first, Gramps. Wow. So this is Russia saying very publicly to the US, we ain't going to stop until we achieve our military objectives. Which should add more to ammunition to Trump's anger with Putin, and the Kremlin. I mean, Medvedev is actually, I think, handing Ukraine a bit of a gift here. Like, that is not good diplomacy. You'd rather say nothing than that. Lindsey Graham takes that tweet and shows it to Donald Trump, says, look, they don't give a damn about you wanting peace. This is belligerent rhetoric. They're taking the mickey out of all of us, and they want to achieve their maximalist intentions. Steve Rosenberg, reporting from Moscow for the BBC, says, as he reads the daily papers, says, judging from today's Russian papers, it doesn't sound like Donald Trump his reduced deadline to 10 to 12 days will persuade Moscow to end the war in Ukraine. Quote, the ultimatum was not taken seriously, not 50 days, not 10 to 12 days, is one newspaper. Another, Moscow has no intention of caving to pressure. I mean, wowzers. I mean, like I often say, listen to what the Russians are telling you. And here we have Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson for the Kremlin, saying, despite statements from Trump, Russia will continue its special military operation to defend its interests. Wow. They have no desire to come to the peace table and do a deal with Ukraine, certainly within 10 to 12 days. I think Trump was absolutely right not to give them 50 days. He was right yesterday when he said, well, we know what they think now. We know what they're going to do. Like, what's deeply, deeply frustrating is it's taken him 6 to 7 months to get to the point where he should have been, not just 6 months ago on January the 20th, but actually 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We've known what Putin is like since 2014, right? You're an idiot if you can't read him. I have to say, Trump couldn't read him and has only just learnt how to read him now. So well done, Trump. But my goodness, that is poor. That is poor judgment on Trump's part. So, like I always say, don't congratulate Trump, because this is like a case of, you know, the old maxim that the US always does the right thing after exhausting all the wrong things, all the wrong options. You know, this is Trump eventually getting to the right conclusion after exhausting every other option available. Director General of the Russian Space Agency Roscosmos, Dmitry Bakanov, has arrived in the United States to meet with NASA Acting Administrator Sean Duffy and a crew of the Crew Dragon spacecraft, which includes Russian cosmonaut Oleg Platonov. Well, that's nice. This is the first in-person meeting between the heads of the Russian and the US space agencies in the past 8 years. Reports that Bakanov is also scheduled to visit the Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center and Kennedy Space Center, the production facilities of Boeing, SpaceX's spacecraft and launch vehicle assembly sites. Reportedly, Bakanov also plans to attend the launch of a Falcon rocket from Florida. What the frickety dick is going on here? What are you doing? So on the one hand, Trump's being all like, yeah, 10 to 12 days. On the other hand, they're like, yeah, come over, come and visit all our stuff. Come on, Russia. Come in, just come in. Yeah, I know you're terrible. Just come in anyway. Look, have a look at all this. Isn't this wonderful? Taking notes, taking pictures. Just insanity. And then we see this. This is quite incredible. So we'll leave on this note. This is a dash cam, or no, mobile phone actually, of a Russian driving down the road and passing vehicle after vehicle after vehicle of water. These are all water trucks. This is 25 seconds of water trucks. I've never seen so many water trucks. Quite incredible. What are they doing? Well, Anton Gerashchenko explains these water trucks are heading from Russia's Rostov region toward Ukraine. Due to Russian occupation, Donetsk region has been left without water. The region, so we've heard that in Donetsk city, a place that, what is it, in 2014? It held the Euro finals or whatever, the football championships. And now Donetsk city is a shadow of its former self. Due to Russian occupation, Donetsk region has been left without water. The region is currently suffering from extreme heat. The water is almost entirely unavailable, both drinking and... Oh yeah, that's so Donetsk city has water once every 3 days. Incredible. And technical water has to be delivered to more than 1.2 million residents of Donetsk and Makivka, as well as to 500,000 people in other towns and cities. There's also a shortage of water for Russian soldiers from the centre and east military groupings. The hopelessness of the situation is not that there is no way to deliver water because of leaky pipes, destroyed water intakes and pumping stations. The real disaster is that the water itself has physically run out. In the Donetsk coal basin, nearly all mines have been flooded during the occupation. As long as the mines were operating or kept in dry conservation, water was regularly pumped out. But after Russian forces occupied the city in 2014, they first sold all the equipment from these mines for scrap metal. Then they simply flooded everything. Flooding the mines means stopping the pumping of water from them, disrupted water horizons, underground rivers, etc., stopping them doing their job. The tragedy is that once a mine fills up, its contents mix with those groundwater horizons. The resulting excess pressure forces this mine water to rise to the surface, creating huge rust-coloured swamps. That's iron oxide. As a result, all water horizons in Donbass are now unfit for any use. This is a massive environmental catastrophe that no one is talking about. That's Russian liberation for you. That's what they do. This is what freedom looks like in Russia. I haven't done that for a long time. Yay, dirty water. Woohoo! I love Russia. And we heard the other day, Slovaks, population of Slovakia, something like 14% of them say they want to live under Russian rule. Yeah, because it's so freaking good, isn't it? It's awesome. Well done, Putin. Good old Poots. He cares for his peeps, doesn't he? He cares a lot. We care a lot. Let's get some Faith No More in, playing in Moscow. You don't care a damn. Anyway, take care. Speak soon. Toodle pips.